Hey, what's going on, gang? This is Nate on the Stone. Welcome back to my channel. And today's topic isn't going to be a fun one, FYI. We're going to be talking about the El Paso and the Dayton shootings. But if you want to know one of the main reasons why shootings like these keep happening, then just watch to the end of the video. Patrick Crusius, the El Paso shooter, killed 22 people in his attack. And Connor Betts, the Dayton shooter, killed 9. And that's not including all the people that they wounded. The Dayton Police Department, as of this recording, are still trying to piece together a motive for why Betts did what he did, although according to CNN, he seems to have had a fascination with mass shootings and violence in general. But in Crusius's case, the motive seems to be pretty clear-cut. Just good old-fashioned plain racism. In a 4-page manifesto that he uploaded onto the website 8chan not 30 minutes before his attack, Crusius railed against what he called the Hispanic invasion, which he said was responsible for the U.S. rotting from the inside out. He wrote, quote, "In general, I support the Christchurch shooter and his manifesto. This attack is a response to the Hispanic invasion of Texas. They are the instigators, not me. I am simply defending my country from the cultural and ethnic replacement brought on by an invasion," unquote. There was the usual knee-jerk reaction from the usual suspects that all the blame for these attacks could be laid at the feet of the current occupant of the White House, who, it turns out, is now not just a racist, but also a white supremacist?
So the president tweeted today that he was looking forward to his meeting with wonderful inner-city pastors. Any concern for you that the president used this meeting with black leaders to insulate himself from that criticism?
I don't think so. I don't think that at all, because I've been to the White House 4 times in 5 months. So it was nothing about insulating him from anything. He wanted to hear from us what our concerns were and what he could do to help us.
Semantics. But the other main idea that was pushed forward after these tragedies is that white supremacy itself is actually on the rise. The Guardian wrote that El Paso was part of a growing global threat of white power ideology, which is responsible for 175 people being killed in 16 attacks since 2011. NBC wrote that quote-unquote white nationalist-fueled violence is on the rise, with a 35% increase in extremist white murders from 2017 to 2018. So the big question is, are these claims true? It's important to remember that right now there are actually 3 different implied questions being asked. Is white supremacy on the rise? Is violence linked to white supremacy on the rise? Are mass shootings in particular linked to white supremacy on the rise? Let's tackle those one at a time, but in reverse order, and you're going to see why here in just a sec. The answer to the first question is a big no, which is actually contrary to what CBS wrote, saying, quote, "As of August 5th, which was the 217th day of the year, there have been 255 mass shootings in the U.S., according to data from the nonprofit Gun Violence Archive," unquote. But the only reason why the archive reached that number is because, according to Ryan Saavedra, they included gang violence and home invasions in their calculations, something that you don't really do when you're trying to figure out how many mass shootings have happened in a certain span of time. And there's something else. It might come as a bit of surprise, but there is actually no hard and fast definition of a mass shooting. The Congressional Research Service defines a mass shooting as an incident, quote, "in which 4 or more people selected indiscriminately, not including the perpetrator, are killed," echoing the FBI definition of the term mass murder, unquote. But the GVA defines a mass shooting as an incident in which at least 4 people, not including the perpetrator, are shot, not just killed, which definitely broadens the base and also definitely gives the impression that the GVA is trying to stuff the numbers here. It's also important to remember that whites are not disproportionately represented among shooters. According to Valerie Richardson, writing in the Washington Times, a Rockefeller Institute of Government Policy brief, which looked at all incidents that led to death or injury, excluding gang violence or terrorism, found that, quote, "Despite common misconceptions that all mass shooters are white, this proportion is just over half of the perpetrators, 53.9%. More than 1 in 4 shooters is black, and nearly 1 in 10 is of Hispanic descent," unquote. Which actually shouldn't be surprising when we remember that the majority of the US population right now is still Caucasian. The answer to the second question is also a very firm No. According to Joe Craven McGinty, writing in the Wall Street Journal, the National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism and the Responses to Terrorism has discovered that far-right extremism has actually been pretty steady since the 1970s. What's changed has been the emphasis placed on reporting these cases of far-right extremism, which has given the impression that far-right extremism is actually on the rise. But what about the Anti-Defamation League's report that out of 50 extremist-related killings in 2018, bundled in 17 separate incidences, 78% can be linked to white nationalism? Well, the problem there is that while some of these crimes were definitely committed by white supremacists, their motivation wasn't white supremacy. For example, Richard Starry was definitely part of a white supremacy gang while he was in prison, but his crime is that he actually killed 4 of his relatives in a nursing center and at his home, in what police described as a quote-unquote apparent act of domestic violence before turning the weapon on himself. Similarly, James Mathis was also part of a white supremacy gang when he was in prison. But his crime was that he and his wife Amanda Oakes actually killed their 6-month-old son and stuffed his body in a hotel freezer. Roger Tackett, who according to police reports had white supremacy tattoos on his body, fatally shot an acquaintance after they had a disagreement. These crimes are evil, atrocious, and the perpetrators need to be punished to the full extent of the law, but it's hard to see how white supremacy actually played a motivation in what they did. Oh, and in case any of you are keeping score, 3 examples out of 17, we just wiped out 17.6% of the ADL's examples. It is true, to be fair, that the ADL report says right off the bat that their numbers include both ideological and non-ideological killings, but that just raises the question why they would do that. To get a more accurate number of what they were trying to measure, it would make more sense to just include the killings that had a clear ideological motive behind them. Again, like with the gun violence archive, the feeling is that the ADL is trying to stuff the numbers so that they can arrive at a more dramatic conclusion. And that brings us to the third question, and yeah, the answer might be yes on this one. FBI Director Christopher Wray, according to The Hill, stated that since October of 2018, the FBI has made over 100 domestic terror arrests, and that the majority of these crimes were quote-unquote motivated by some version of what you might call white supremacy, although he said that this also included other things as well. And last year, in February of 2018, writing for the Right of Center website The Federalist, David Marcus reported that white supremacy is actually growing on college campuses, with the number of incidents rising from 147 in 2016 to 290 in 2017. So there we have it. Mass shootings and white supremacy violence don't seem to be on the rise, but white supremacy itself does seem to be increasing. So the question now is, why is that happening? The expected answers have been trotted out. White supremacy is a violence that can strike at any time, according to AOC. White supremacy and America's gun culture go together like bacon and eggs, which doesn't explain how non-Caucasian people can actually own guns. More semantics. And the reason du jour trumps rhetoric. But there is another, deeper, more satisfying, and ultimately more terrifying answer. A lot of attention has been focused on Crusius's 4-page manifesto on 8chan, and rightfully so, but what has slipped under the radar is what he wrote in the About section of his LinkedIn account. He said, quote, "I'm not really motivated to do anything more than necessary to get by. Working in general sucks, but I guess a career in software development suits me well. I spend about 8 hours every day on the computer, so that counts as technology experience, I guess. Pretty much gonna do what technology careers present themselves. Go with the wind." Crusius was a man without a purpose. He was a hollow man, if you will. And that is a very dangerous thing to be. Writing in Psychology Today, Dr. Stephen Taylor says that purpose is a fundamental component of a fulfilling life, because having a purpose, having a goal, actually means that we have a channel to direct all of our energies. It allows us to know who we are, where we're going, and why we were put on this planet to begin with. As bonuses, having a purpose also increases our self-esteem when we overcome obstacles on the road to achieving that purpose, and it also increases our hope because when we actually set our eyes on some goal, we're saying that yes, that goal is attainable, and our lives and the lives of the people around us are going to be better when I achieve that goal. What all this means is that we are less susceptible to psychological discord, which Taylor describes as a fundamental sense of unease, expressed through boredom, anxiety, and depression. It's the fear that comes when we know, way down deep here in our bones, that we're adrift, and that we are simply being blown wherever the wind sends us. And this hollowness that Crusius confessed to isn't rare by any stretch of the imagination. According to the UK Sun, 9 out of 10 Britons between the ages of 16 and 29 feel that their lives have no purpose. That amounts to 89% of that demographic. And while that statistic might not be the same here in the States, American millennials are also suffering through a crisis of purpose. One way that we can see that is actually through attrition or job testing. On average, a millennial will stay at a job for only 2 years, 3 years below a Gen Xer and 5 years below a boomer. Speaking to the LA Times, CEO Karen Ross said that one reason for that is because millennials want to make a difference in the world. They want to have purpose in their lives, but they're not having any luck in finding that purpose. And one of the big reasons for the lack of purpose in so many lives today is because the things that actually gave purpose to life in the past are now being erased. Take religion. Dr. Taylor, in his article on purpose, says that religion is one of the primary means by which people gain purpose for their lives. And it's not hard to see why this is. If you're a Christian, for example, you know that you're here on earth because God loves you and He wants you to be joyful with Him forever in the next life. That means that your purpose, ultimately, is to attain that goal by loving God above all things and your neighbor as yourself. And this is true for all religions, right across the board. Religions, by their very nature, give their followers some sort of overarching purpose for their lives. But religion is declining in the West, and America is no exception to this rule. According to Pew Research, the number of religious unaffiliated, the nones, rose from 16 to 23% between 2008 and 2015, largely because of young adults. According to data gathered by the Public Religion Research Institute, 39% of Americans between the ages of 18 and 29 are religiously unaffiliated. And yes, I know the conventional wisdom still is that the US is more religious than, say, Western Europe. But when the default religious position of the US is moral therapeutic deism, religion on my terms and no one else's, that's not a religion that's actually going to give your life any great deal of purpose. Family, another institution that used to give our lives purpose by allowing us to channel our energies in a specific direction, is also in free fall. The percentage of Americans between 18 and 65 who are married fell to a historical low in 2016, 48.6%, in large part because more people are cohabiting and not getting married, more people are just putting off marriage, and the percentage of people who just put off marriage indefinitely or forever rose from 26% in 1990 to 36% in 2016. And should we really be surprised at this trend? The idea of marriage as a sacred or quasi-sacred institution has been nuked with no-fault divorce and the permutation of what marriage and family even is. Today you can marry yourself, polyamory is the new cool thing to do, and is incest actually going to be next? Seriously? We have even reached the point where some sections of society are actually advocating for the complete abolition of the family, all so that people can be free. I mean, really, what did we think was going to happen to the marriage rate and to family life with ideas like that running amok? And another reason for this lack of purpose is the brutal assault, not just attack, but assault on masculinity. When the default position is that you are part of rape culture just for the mere fact of being a biological male. When the default position is that you are an oppressor for the simple mere accidental fact that you happen to be Caucasian. And when both of these ideas come together so that we can get something like this.
We need to kill all men. I am sick of being a baby factory that produces more men that will just, in the future, subjugate me. So the only answer to that is to kill male babies and just kill any man that you see, like in the streets, like any swinging dick.
What are men supposed to think except that they are the scum of the earth? And honestly, how easy is it to actually get a purpose and goal in life when you have ideas like that drilled into your head 24/7? When the institutions and structures and beliefs that gave people purpose blow up and people are empty, they're not going to stay empty forever. That God-shaped hole in the heart that Blaise Pascal identified all those years ago demands to be filled, and it's going to be filled one way or the other. It's simple physics at this point, gang. Nature abhors a vacuum. And if the only thing that they can find to fill that hole is an ideology like white supremacy or jihadism, then they will take that ideology, they will cling to it, and they will make it their own, rather than face the emptiness inside of themselves. White supremacy isn't going to be solved by a new law from Washington, or new gun control regulations, or new rules for social media, or diversity training, or reparations, or confronting ourselves, whatever that means. It's only going to be solved by people finding good purpose for their lives again. And that might actually mean shoring up the institutions that actually gave purpose to people's lives for thousands of years, and which coincidentally built civilizations from deserts and the ruins of empires. Just a thought. But what say you? Can purpose be restored by restoring the old institutions and beliefs that gave purpose to people's lives for thousands of years? Or in this day and age, are they too far gone and are new institutions needed to fill that God-shaped hole in our hearts? As always, let me know your thoughts, your ideas, your opinions in the comment box below. Well, that about wraps up everything for right now, gang. As always, if you liked the video, whether you agreed with me or not, don't forget to show your support by giving it a like and by sharing it with your friends on social media. And if you like videos about the culture, politics, and religion, but from a different POV, then do subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for notifications so that you'll always know when I post new videos like this every Tuesday, videos you're not going to want to miss. As always, thank you for watching, for giving me a bit of your day. Thank you to everyone who has already subscribed to my channel, and I will see you all again here next week, gang, on top of the stone. Ciao.